of the junior division here at the 2015 U.S. National Championships.
So yeah, right off the bat, we're seeing all of these players running Crobat. It's all about damage counters while not even having to attack to sort of create one-hit knockouts. On Ryan's side, we have different fighters like Hawlucha, Landorus, Lucario. And on Evan's side, we're looking at what we just saw, the Manectric and Seismitoad EX.
Yeah, I think a big thing in this matchup will be the starting Pokemon for Evan. If he has to start with Manectric EX, that's a huge liability. It's weak to fighting type, so a Landorus EX can sometimes even knock that out for one energy card. And it looks like, he has to actually start with two Manectric EX.
Doubles. That is definitely gross.
And
that's what we're thinking. Yeah,
he actually plays Super Scoop Up, realizing, oh boy, I probably don't want two of these in play. But there we see the setup from Shaman EX drawing 3 cards.
So he does have a Seismitoad. That's his ideal starter here. Excellent when it hits through Landorus' water weakness. But we are playing sort of a weakness game here. When you're weak to fighting, it's terrible. When you have fighting's weakness, it's pretty great.
Yeah, and here, Evan, starting off with Colress, it's only going to draw him 3 cards. Not as great as you would like on the first turn. Usually on the first
turn.
No
Skyfield 16 this time.
Yeah, usually on the first turn, you're trying to play an N or a Professor Sycamore. Try to draw a lot of cards. Colress for 3, that might limit your options a little bit. So, unfortunate start so far for Evan.
So, here we go. Energy, Crobat, Toad. That's definitely not what you want to see. While it definitely does hurt when you're playing a supporter for a few cards, the number one thing you're hoping for is another supporter or a way to draw more. And without that yet for Evan, it looks like Ryan's going to take off to a pretty quick start.
Yikes, all of a sudden a strong energy, a muscle band. That Hammerhead's already doing 70 base damage, and then multiply that by 2 for the weakness of Manectric EX. We're already hitting for 140 damage. This could be a big turn, especially if Ryan can find that Fighting Stadium.
Yeah, Fighting Stadium, and it's already a knockout. But even as is, this can set up a beautiful play with Lysander in the next turn. It's perfect where the Manectric has just 30 HP remaining. If he pulls something else up, he can just knock it out on the bench with Hammerhead's bench damage.
But there we see Super Scoop Up, flipping heads, picking up that Manectric EX, denying 2 prize cards for Ryan, and now here comes Seismitoad EX.
Ooh, and that's definitely not what Ryan wants to see. He's going to be slowed indefinitely. He's being hit by weakness damage. Evan does not have the typical muscle band that you see on Seismitoad, so he's not hitting for 100 a pop. It's not going to get a 2-hit knockout. But he does have what this deck ultimately does like to get in this matchup, and that's the item lock.
Right, so hits for 60 damage thanks to the weakness of Landorus EX, Quaking Punch, taking away the item cards for Ryan. Both players have not been able to get any Zubat on the field, so at some point we may see, well, there we see the first Zubat for Ryan. Those Golbat and Crobat will definitely come into play.
Right, those are especially the biggest when you're just chipping away at like 30, 50, 70 damage at a time. They're great for cleaning out knockouts on Seismitoad.
Right, so now we're on Evan's turn, and an Enhanced Hammer going to discard that strong energy from Landorus EX. We saw Ryan was unable to find another energy card on his turn, so maybe he might not be able to attack next turn.
So you do see Pete Ball. He's going to look for a Pokemon that he already has in play. Great for bats, because you can get multiple bats swarming in that cave.
Yeah, we do see 2 Zubat coming out at this point, and here's where you'll see those Golbat come into play. If Evan can find a Muscle Band this turn and Quaking Punch for 100 damage, next turn he could follow up with that Golbat Sneaky Bite, put 2 damage counters on Landorus EX, and get a knockout through an ability. That would be a really big play.
These bats run both ways, and even if this Seismitoad in the active spot does fall, wait a second, it's not going anywhere. Right back up to hand, Scoop Up Cyclone, giving him a way to restore, I guess, all of that damage. One interesting thing here is he could have promoted the Zubat and free flighted away. But instead, we've got one big Seismitoad in the active position.
Yeah, so far, Evan has been able to deny Ryan 4 prize cards. The first Manectric EX got scooped up by a Super Scoop Up. The Seismitoad EX got scooped up by that Scoop Up Cyclone. So this is going to be a big difference in this matchup. Evan able to play his item cards. He can play those Super Scoop Up. He can play that Scoop Up Cyclone. Whereas Ryan, if he's being hit by Quaking Punch, cannot play those cards.
One of the roughest things when you're running one of these bat-based decks is you often want to play a lot of item cards to search out Pokemon. But when you're being hit by Quaking Punch, your search options are severely limited.
Right, and Ryan told us in his interview earlier, the one card he was afraid of facing was Seismitoad EX. I don't think many people like playing against that card.
No, not at all. It's so powerful. Really is a defining Pokemon of this format.
Yeah, so there we see another Hammerhead. Landorus EX has been able to attack quite a few times, so even though Evan has been able to scoop up his Pokemon frequently, at least Landorus EX has spread some damage, but we see the first knockout for Evan with that Quaking Punch.
Yeah, that is one of the roughest things for Landorus to face against. It's such a strong Pokemon, has excellent 1 energy spread damage, but it has weakness to one of the most popular Pokemon in the format, making even just a 1 for 30 attack all of a sudden seem a little bit more respectable.
Yeah, we see Ryan not play any cards before he plays that Colress. His hand filled with item cards that he's unable to play from Quaking Punch. It just really disrupts your opponent. And look, the first 3 cards he can't even play because they're item cards.
Yeah, items everywhere. I'm sure he would love to play that Ultra Ball right now. Can't do that.
Yeah, he's got Versus Seeker, Ultra Ball. He would love to play those right now, but he can't. And even though Seismitoad EX's Quaking Punch may not do the most damage, it does disrupt your opponent and ruin their plans.
So he is still able to sort of chip away with Landorus, hoping that he doesn't have to deal with another Super Scoop Up, recycling all of this damage. But while the item lock is up and Evan has a replacement Toad, it is looking great for him.
Yeah, so we do see an Ultra Ball coming from Evan. We'll probably see a Golbat come out, start to get that extra damage out with Sneaky Bite, and then he might want to find a Muscle Band or, like you said, a Super Scoop Up.
Yeah, Muscle Band is one of the key cards that Evan has not been able to find yet. While it is just an extra 20 damage to your attack, if you're facing against weakness, consider it an extra 40. It's giving him a 2-hit knockout instead of just the usual 1.
Right, and there we see Sneaky Bite from Golbat. That ability puts 2 damage counters on Landorus EX. And so far, Evan has been able to control this matchup. Right at the start, you know, his Manectric EX took a big hit for 140 damage. Looked like he might be in trouble, but he has stabilized very well.
Yeah, while the Manectric doesn't have free retreat, like its Mega counterpart, if you can just pick it up with a Super Scoop Up, get it out of there, get it as far away from this matchup as you can, it certainly changes everything.
Right, and we do see Hawlucha coming down for Ryan. That's going to be a big card. And Lysander bringing out Manectric EX, trying to stall for time here, maybe break that Quaking Punch lock. Hits Manectric EX for 60 damage, and then Seismitoad EX on the bench for 30 more.
Ooh, we see a Crobat down, Surprise Bite for an additional 3 damage counters.
Right, so there we see Professor Sycamore. That Surprise Bite will put Landorus EX in range for a knockout if Evan is able to find a Muscle Band.
I don't know if he found an energy either.
Oh yeah, he does need one of those to retreat or another one of those Super Scoop Up.
I think Ryan's gamble here, just leaving the Manectric stuck active, actually pays off.
And actually, sometimes you just kind of go for that Hail Mary and say, you know what? I hope my opponent doesn't have an energy to retreat. Give me 1 turn to play item cards, and then I can start to stabilize a little bit. You know, play an Ultra Ball here, play a Versus Seeker here, get a supporter. This is the big turn that Ryan needed.
Yeah, he was able to get himself out of that Quaking Punch. Now he's got bat damage. If he puts it, for example, on the Seismitoad, now that's in KO range on the bench. He could get 4 prizes this turn.
Yeah, we're seeing all sorts of crazy swings, and that's exactly what you can expect when you're seeing these Crobat decks. Big bursts of damage coming out of nowhere just through those abilities, and then your Pokemon, you know, they do some decent amounts of damage, but the Golbat and Crobat are really what make the impact.
And look at Ryan go. He's playing all these items. He knows this might be the last turn he gets a chance to do this game. Versus Seeker, get all the supporters. Oh, I think he's going to want that Colress in his hand, though.
So he's playing that Colress
he's playing it immediately.
8 cards here, and he actually does get the second Golbat, it looks like, so he can take a knockout on that bench Seismitoad EX. If can't remember if he put that in play this turn, though. There we go. Yep. So he's going to use the... he's actually just going to put the damage on the Manectric EX. This way he can take 4 prizes in 1 turn with that Hammerhead, knock out the active Manectric EX and the Seismitoad EX on the bench.
We also see a Super Scoop Up on his hand. He hits heads.
Wow.
He's going to reset all that damage on Landorus, throw out the free retreat Hawlucha, just slap the energy back down, and all of a sudden, look at that. Ryan has some of the same tricks Evan does.
And you can see just 1 turn of item cards. That's all you need to just have that explosive turn. 4 prizes in 1 attack. Incredible.
And that Landorus was looking like it was in knockout range. This buys him an extra turn to start attacking. He's going to lose his items again, but he sure made that 1 turn where he could use them count.
Yeah, so now Evan back to being in a little bit of trouble. Seismitoad EX, sure, it's going to hit Landorus EX for 100 damage, but there's already 60 damage on that Seismitoad EX. Just 120 more damage, and he'll lose the game.
We do see a Head Ringer come on to Landorus EX, forcing it to have at least an additional energy to attack for Hammerhead.
Right, Head Ringer, pretty big card here. And then Quaking Punch resumes. No more item cards for Ryan once again.
And this time it is finally with a Muscle Band, so it's 100 instead of the 60 we've been seeing before.
Yeah, one of the big things about Ryan's deck, he only runs 9 total energy, so we've seen him at times miss energy cards. Sometimes they'll run out, sometimes they'll just miss one, so that head ringer could make all the difference, and yes, he's unable to attack.
Oh, but this time his Lysander pull-up does not quite work the same way it did with the Manectric. He has an energy ready to go, retreats the Shaman, and we're right back to Toad, and he's going to get a knockout this time.
Yeah, Evan will tie the game up with this Quaking Punch, but Ryan's still in a pretty good position. It'll be a tie game, but, Quaking Punch doesn't knock out Crobat very quickly. 130 HP on that Crobat, so even if Ryan doesn't have anything immediately, he can buy a few turns.
Right, and it looks like he has that Hawlucha ready to go on the bench. All he needs is an energy. We've seen that he hasn't been able to find one yet, but if he can just flying press to end the game.
Right, so this is going to be a really close game for both these players. Here we go, Professor Sycamore once again for Evan, drawing a fresh hand of 7 cards. I mean, he obviously has to take the knockout with Quaking Punch and just kind of cross his fingers and hope Ryan doesn't find an energy to use that flying press.
And so we see, just Quaking Punch, and here we go. Hawlucha's up. And, he top decks an energy. Strong down, flying press, and that little Hawlucha takes Seismitoad with a single energy blow.
Wow, what a crazy back-and-forth game. Looked like Ryan right at the beginning had the clear advantage, putting so much damage on Evan's field. And then all of a sudden, Evan turns it around with Super Scoop Up and Scoop Up Cyclone. But then Ryan just needed one turn of item cards, and all of a sudden the game went right back into his favor.
If anything, I'd say that game came down to the scoops. Being able to reset damage gave both players a chance from going from a losing matchup into a winning one on both sides of the field.
Yeah, that one key turn was the turn that Ryan played that Lysander, and Evan was unable to retreat his Manectric EX, missed that Quaking Punch, and that gave Ryan the opening he needed to come back.
Yeah, I think he played a Sycamore too. Just drew 7 cards, didn't find an energy. Sometimes when your back's against the wall, there's only one small play that you can make to give you a glimmer of hope. Huge props to Ryan for being able to see it.
Yeah, I mean, these two players are the best of the best. They've made it through this big field at the National Championships. They're the only 2 remaining players, but this is a best 2 out of 3 series. Ryan wins the first game, but we could have 2 more games if Evan can manage to win the next one.
And we've seen how close this could be, so that's definitely not out of the question.
Yeah, we're in for some exciting games, I think. Something I do want to point out, we said Ryan only plays 9 total energy cards. So does Evan. Just 6 lightning energy, 3 of those double colorless energy. So it's not too surprising that Lysander strategy worked for Ryan. Only 9 energy cards in the deck. It's very easy to miss one if you need to retreat.
Yeah, oftentimes, a lot of these bat-based decks, because they have to dedicate so many cards to an evolution line, they try and rely around low energy attackers.
Right, and this game looking much different. No Manectric EX start this time for Evan. Starting off with that Seismitoad EX, exactly what he wanted.
Yeah, Evan is definitely not wanting to give up any crazy 4-prize knockout turns anymore. Hopefully for him, he finds a double colorless energy so he can start this lock as quickly as possible.
That's right. Well, Evan is going first, so he won't be able to attack. Sometimes we see an interesting situation where a Seismitoad EX is in the active position, has the energy ready to attack, but can't use Quaking Punch. And then the Landorus Crobat deck can use Hawlucha to get the first hit in, and then go with the Flying Press. And then you put the Seismitoad player in an awkward position.
Right, and unless he can get some bat damage, this isn't your typical Seismitoad Hawlucha matchup where you're relying on some of that extra damage with Hypnotoxic Laser. You're going to have to get like a Golbat in play and a Muscle Band if you want to knock out Hawlucha in one attack.
Wow, Ryan playing his cards at lightning speed, getting that Hawlucha down and a bunch of other Pokemon, Fighting Stadium, Flying Press for 80 damage. So yeah, he's putting that pressure on right away, but he didn't play a supporter card.
He might be just up to this one attacker to pull it through. Evan drawing 7 cards off his Sycamore. He did not get that energy, although I do see a Shaman. He might just, out of desperation, attempt to draw.
We do see the Golbat with a sneaky bite and a Super Scoop Up. This could be big.
Ooh, tails this time.
So he is unable to scoop up that Seismitoad EX. Like you said, he does have Shaman EX. He can put that down. Also puts down the Manectric EX to draw an extra card.
Oh, and he at least finds himself a double colorless and a Muscle Band.
Wow,
back to
perfect
back.
combination.
He might even hit this Super Scoop Up and heal, and he does. Boop, right back up to hand. Clean Toad erasing Hawlucha, both the damage that it dealt and its existence on the field.
Wow, what a crazy turn of events. These two decks are so unpredictable. You don't know what's going to happen with all these Super Scoop Up and Golbat and Crobat and Muscle Band, and all of a sudden there's another Flying Press from Ryan. Man, what a crazy game.
And on Ryan's side, he's saying, well, you know, I might not be able to use items, but I'm not done yet. Evan, he does not have a replacement bat, so it looks like he's... he uses Crobat with it. There we go.
Yeah, so now Ryan, he stalls out a little bit. Unable to find any supporter cards this game. Lysander from Evan brings up the Landorus EX. There's a Quaking Punch. Already has the head ringer on it, so that won't be able to attack.
These players playing at a breakneck pace. And you can see how quickly this is going downhill for Ryan.
Yeah.
He doesn't have easy knockouts. He's going to attempt to, I don't know. What can he do
Top decks
here?
the Professor Sycamore, so he'll get a fresh hand of 7 cards. We'll see if he can find another Hawlucha and maybe take the knockout here.
I don't see any Pokemon yet in his hand. Perhaps Crobat as just something to soak up damage counters, and he can drop 3 of his own with the Surprise Bite.
Yeah, Crobat is actually pretty effective for buying time against Seismitoad EX. 130 HP, only gives up 1 prize card, and Evan isn't playing any of those Hypnotoxic Laser, so he'll have to rely on Golbat and Crobat just to get a 2-hit knockout on Crobat.
It is funny, because Crobat doesn't have to deal with weakness, it actually takes more hits from Seismitoad than Landorus EX at 180 HP.
Right, and we do see a Karina from Ryan, so he'll be able to search out that Hawlucha and take down this first Seismitoad EX. He's putting up a fight in this game.
So he's going, it looks like grabbing Hawlucha. And is it just the Hawlucha he's grabbing here? Besides, I don't want an item.
Can't play it. What's the point?
Some players, they'll be like, oh, well, I guess I'll thin the deck so I can't draw this later. But Ryan, he's got Hawlucha ready, Flying Press for a knockout, and 2 prize cards.
Yeah, so another Seismitoad EX coming out for Evan. He's just going straight Seismitoad. Only plays 2 in his deck, but they're really doing the heavy lifting for him.
See an Ultra Ball over on Evan's side. I'm sure he's probably looking for Crobat. Although he does not have the Muscle Band on this Seismitoad, so without it, he can't actually get a knockout here on this turn.
Yeah, it's going to be all up to Hawlucha in this game. 2 of them have gone down. This is the 3rd and final one Ryan has in his deck. Can Hawlucha carry him to a victory?
It's Hawlucha's last stand. It is great. Even though the 1 for 60 is already great, Flying Press. Oh, and all of a sudden, I was about to talk about some of the extra damage he gets. He does lose a strong energy here.
Yeah, that Enhanced Hammer, discarding the special energy off of Ryan's Hawlucha. And then the big thing here is, can Evan find that Muscle Band? If he can, Hawlucha will go down, and here we go. Professor Sycamore for 7 cards.
First card. All right, well, Muscle Band's in here. Those Hawlucha have taken a beating. Professional wrestler or not, looks like Seismitoad's got the real grapple here.
There we see the Quaking Punch getting the knockout on Hawlucha, and all of a sudden Ryan's up against the wall. I mean, he's got a Crobat with 70 damage already. Puts down the Landorus EX, but hey, an N that can put Evan at 1 card. Maybe that's his only hope.
Yes, if there is a comeback card, it's N, especially at the end of the game. Only being able to draw 1 after you already have a sizable hand is pretty nice. However, at the very least, this Seismitoad is sticking in the active position, so Ryan's going to have to put up something to either soak up damage or just deal with Seismitoad in one way or another if he wants to try and turn it around.
Yeah, if he can find a strong energy, maybe he can use Hammerhead for 70 damage. That would be a decent play here, but looks like he didn't find an energy card at all, and I don't know what Ryan can do here. If he leaves up Crobat, it can take a hit from Quaking Punch, but then after that, where do you go?
Yeah, I feel like Crobat, I guess, is your best bet. You can't put up Zubat because that's getting knocked out immediately. Landorus doesn't look that pretty either because it's taking 100 damage, and it looks like off of just that 1 card and 1 top deck, Evan was able to find himself a Colress, so he's getting a fresh hand right after being end.
Yeah, that's an incredible draw off of just that 1 card from N and the 1 card for the turn.
Oh, wow, and I think Ryan's about to lose his Hammerhead option right here at the head ringer.
Right, and promoting Landorus EX was not an option at all for Ryan. If you promote Landorus EX, it gets hit by a Quaking Punch for 100. 3 retreat cost, can't play any of your Super Scoop Up, so it's just kind of stuck there. So yeah, he made the right play. Crobat now just 10 HP left, and Ryan concedes the game. That means Evan Smith takes game number 2, and wow, tied this series up.
Just like that. You can see how crazy this matchup becomes. It really comes down to whether or not Evan can start with Seismitoad.
Yeah.
Even if, like that last game, he did sort of start with Seismitoad because he had some Manectric there, but he had them on the bench. They were in the play for too long. They became a liability, and Ryan was able to at least buy himself a turn and use items. If he can't do that and he gets hit, loses his items right away to a Quaking Punch, it's very hard to turn it around.
Yeah, like I said right at the beginning, a lot of this will come down to which Pokemon Evan has to start with. If it's Manectric EX, he's at a huge disadvantage. That's just a 2-prize liability, weakness to fighting. If he starts with a Seismitoad EX or a Zubat, hey, he's going to have a pretty good shot.
And we saw Evan really got everything he needed to offset those Haluchas. It actually seemed like Ryan started pretty hot, hit for like 100 damage with a single flying press on Seismitoad, and Evan just reset it all with a super scoop up, slowing him down considerably.
Yeah, the crazy thing about that game is Ryan didn't actually play any supporter cards for the first couple turns. His start still looked strong because Halucha and Fighting Stadium and Strong Energy, it's just a simple combo that adds up for a bunch of damage. But yeah, beyond that, he really didn't have many options to work with the entire game.
And unfortunately for him, I think every single one of those turns when he had a Halucha up, it got knocked out the turn that it was in play. It isn't always the easiest for Seismitoad to accomplish 70 damage when you're just dealing a maximum of 50. And you still need double colorless and muscle band. But if you can get those bats in play all in conjunction, it really can shut your opponent down.
Looks like these players are pretty much all set up, so let's go to game number 3. Let's hear some noise for Evan and Ryan. Game number 3, we will decide the junior national champion right here.
It's all down to this. We've seen each of these players take a game, so we know that both of them are very capable of taking it all.
And these players play so quickly. Ryan's already played a Professor Sycamore and drawn 7 new cards. We see a Muscle Band and a Fighting Energy on his Landorus EX, but Evan starts with Seismitoad EX once again.
Yeah, that's definitely got to be what Evan prefers. Only running 2 Seismitoad EX in this deck, 3 Manectric, so the odds are stacked against him, maybe a little bit. But hey, sometimes you just got to clutch it out.
Wow, so Professor Sycamore from Evan as well. Both these players opting to do that immediately on their first turn. Doesn't look like he was able to find a double colorless energy. Has that head ringer. He cannot play it, though, because Landorus EX already has a Pokemon tool. So this is going to be a little rough. I do see a Shaman EX in Evan's hand. He may try to thin his hand out a little bit to draw some cards and really try to find that double colorless energy.
Yeah, he absolutely needs that. Every turn you cannot Quaking Punch is a turn you give your opponent the chance to really run it back against you. And it was really smart of Ryan being able to drop down that Pokemon tool card. He cannot be hit by a head ringer like he has in the past. And so now if he chooses not to attach an additional energy, he can still do Hammerhead no matter what.
All right, so we see a super scoop up. Again, Evan just kind of burning cards here, even puts down an Absol, even though he can't use the ability. Knows how important it is to draw that double colorless energy. But
and I don't think he did. I don't know. Does he run an additional Shaman?
Just one in his deck list, so that one Shaman unable to find him that double colorless energy. And now it looks like he misses the Quaking Punch. He also has a lot of easy targets on his bench. Absol and Manectric EX, both weak to Fighting type.
So Ryan already going very hard. He's going to get a big colors here for 7 cards, and he's already set up that Halucha, and it does have the perfect amount of additional damage where he can 2-shot Seismitoad EX, provided it doesn't heal. He has Flying Press, 1 for 60, plus 20 because of Strong Energy, plus an additional 20 because of Fighting Stadium.
That's a lot of math.
That's a lot of damage.
Yeah. So yeah, right now Ryan is going to put a ton of pressure on Evan, who has already had to use a super scoop up just trying to find that double colorless energy. So he may not have as many of those at his disposal for the remainder of the game. Getting hit here by Halucha for 100 damage, that's pretty scary.
Yeah, all of a sudden, you're looking at your board and it's like, wow, I'm going to get knocked out next turn to Halucha, this non-EX with 1 energy.
That's right. So there we see a Professor Sycamore from Evan, once again trying to dig for something, anything to try to keep up with this pressure from Ryan.
Oh, and it looks like he still missed the double colorless energy. And even if he did have it, he can't knock out Halucha this turn because he just laid that Zubat down.
Yeah, but he does have a Lightning Energy. He could play that down and try to go for a Quaking Punch.
He touched the 1 basic last turn. You can do it the old-fashioned way.
1 energy at a time. But we'll see if he decides to go for that. He could Quaking Punch, knowing that the odds are his Seismitoad EX will be knocked out by Halucha next turn. So is it worth hitting for 30 damage if you don't have a double colorless ready for next turn?
Yeah, it just depends. What do you value more? Preventing prize cards or initializing the item lock?
Right, and he gets heads on a super scoop up, so he will pick up that Seismitoad EX, returns it to his hand, and resets the damage. And now where's he going to put that energy card?
Plays actually an additional super scoop up, picking up Shaman, attempting to draw more cards here.
He's trying to find that double colorless energy, and he's still unable to find one. 4 of them, or actually just 3 of them in his deck, but he's unable to find one here.
So Evan decided, I want it all. Not only do I want to be able to Quaking Punch, I want to do it on a clean Seismitoad, but he was asking for a lot and unfortunately could not find it.
Yeah, passes the turn with that Zubat in the active position. We do see Crobat with a surprise bite, putting 3 damage counters on Manectric EX, and we see the Lysander bringing that out, and he's going to go for the big Hammerhead knockout this turn.
Yeah, that is one of the crucial weaknesses of Manectric in this matchup. While the Hawlucha does not hit for weakness just because of his Shining Spirit ability, that Landorus is more than happy to initiate the trade.
Yeah, and with Muscle Band and Fighting Stadium, that's going to hit for 140 damage after weakness. So down goes Manectric EX, 2 prize cards for Ryan, and here comes Seismitoad.
All right. And so it looks like after all that time, it certainly took Evan a while, he will finally begin to start his Quaking Punch chain.
Yeah, but look at it. He already has 70 damage on that Seismitoad EX. Those Crobat and Golbat, those bites have been able to pile damage on Seismitoad already, along with the Hammerhead. So, I mean, Quaking Punch, sure, it's great. He's going to take another hit from Hammerhead next turn, and Seismitoad EX is going to be in some trouble.
Yeah, the double helps. At least he perhaps has the tools to start up another Seismitoad afterwards, but he doesn't have too many more options. Ryan only has 4 prize cards left. EXs give up 2 prize cards at a time. Evan will likely have at most just 2 Toads to attempt to accomplish the job, and this one is almost halfway done.
Right, so we do see the Sneaky Bite from Golbat, 2 damage counters on that Landorus EX. I think I see a Stadium card in Evan's hand. He may want to put that down, but opts not to, just goes for that simple Quaking Punch.
All right, so Landorus is facing a knockout next turn. Seismitoad is certainly getting close. We see a Sycamore on Ryan's side drawing 7 new cards.
Yeah, drawing cards faster than I could ever imagine.
I mean,
both these players are playing so quickly, it's almost difficult to keep up with what they're doing. But Ryan, I think he was trying to dig for maybe a strong energy or some way to deal additional damage to this Seismitoad EX. He does find a Crobat, so 3 more damage counters with Surprise Bite, and he'll have to settle for that Hammerhead for 70 damage.
All right, that Seismitoad is on its last legs, and the one on Evan's bench actually isn't looking that great either after all that additional bench damage.
There's just damage flying everywhere. Hammerhead, Crobat, I mean, man, Ryan's just piling the damage on.
This deck is all about just abusing extra damage counters that you can place onto the bench. That way when you're getting knockouts, you can have your opponent in a situation where their new Pokemon are already partially damaged as well.
Right, so here we do see Crobat and a Golbat putting 5 damage counters on that Hawlucha, trying to set that up next turn for a Crobat to finish it off and kind of get a free prize just through abilities. Playing, and here, that's going to put Ryan down to 4 cards.
6 for Evan, and he's really hoping to do everything he can to find this comeback. I think one of the crucial cards for him is going to be eventually, can you find a Super Scoop Up or Scoop Up Cyclone? Erase some of this damage before it's too late. And last card!
Wow.
The last card he drew, Super Cyclone. Super Scoop Up Cyclone.
One of those scoop cards. Scoop Up Cyclone picks up that Seismitoad EX and once again denies Ryan 2 prize cards. He's going to have that Seismitoad EX with 60 damage on it, and he'll get the Quaking Punch. That was a huge moment in this game.
Absolutely. The final card he found off of that draw, huge deal. Ryan, unfortunately, he went through all that work. That Seismitoad was so close to being knocked out, but now it's been reset entirely. Both these players had 4 prize cards apiece, and I believe Evan now is in a situation where perhaps he has the lead.
Yeah, and we do see another Flying Press from that Hawlucha. 60 damage, so that will set it up for another Flying Press next turn. Can Evan find a Crobat? Looks like he plays an Ultra Ball and is unable to find one. Maybe he has one in his hand, or maybe they're in his prize cards.
Could be one of each. Yeah, it would be certainly unfortunate if all of his remaining Crobat were in the prizes. Let's see what he goes for here.
Yeah, now, if he's unable to find a Crobat, he won't be able to use Quaking Punch for a knockout. It'll just be that 50 damage. That Hawlucha will survive, and it will Flying Press, knock out Seismitoad EX, and, man, this is coming down to the wire.
Yeah, that's incredibly unfortunate. If he doesn't have a Crobat or any way to apply that additional damage, these Hawluchas become 2-hit knockouts, which is so much less pretty, especially considering it's a 70 HP Pokemon that only gives up 1 prize card at a time.
Now we do see Versus Seeker grabbing that Colress. Looks like Evan's going to draw a nice full 9 cards here. Not quite the full 10, but hey, 9 cards is pretty good.
Certainly. And perhaps maybe looking for Super Scoop Up. You could reset bats that way. But then it's like, do you save Super Scoop Up for a Toad? Maybe give that some extra health. He has options, but he's certainly in a weird spot.
Yeah, so we'll have to see what he draws off of these 9 cards. He may have drawn a Super Scoop Up. I'm not sure. There it is.
Oh, here it goes.
And
he hits heads. So he's going to pick up the whole bat line, sets himself up. He actually has a great play next turn because he can just knock out the Hawlucha with the... Oh my gosh, what's the Zubat? Golbat. There
Yes,
we go.
there
Had
we
a
go.
moment. So many bats
There's so
here.
much excitement, Josh. I don't blame you.
The Golbat coming up for next turn for knockout on that Hawlucha, and the Crobat on this turn gave him the extra damage he needed to knock out the Hawlucha with an energy.
Right, and Ryan actually taking advantage of Evan's Dimension Valley, uses Skill Dive for no energy, puts 3 damage counters on Seismitoad EX. So great play from Ryan, be able to notice that Dimension Valley is in play, gets the free attack for 30 damage, and now the active Seismitoad EX with just 30 damage remaining.
And so, yeah, we did see Golbat was able to drop those 2 counters, get rid of the Hawlucha.
Oh,
and actually
man. Evan's pushing for the win here. Lysander's out the Shaman EX. Quaking Punch. If he has a Crobat here.
He just passes. And he found the Crobat in the prize cards. That's it. Evan Smith has done it. He is your junior national champion.
Wow, what an incredible series of games here. Back and forth all the way. But at the end, you got to give MVP to Super Scoop Up and Scoop Up Cyclone. Those are the cards that turn the game around.
Them scoops, bro. And actually, an interesting way that Evan was able to close that game is by using Lysander to pull up Ryan's his Shaman. He wasn't able to retreat it. Very similar to the play that Ryan was able to use to win him that very first game.
Yeah, Lysander is really good. Sometimes you just use it to try to trap a Pokemon. If your opponent doesn't have any energy to retreat, you can end up getting a knockout, and that's exactly what happened. Congratulations to Evan, also to Ryan. Both of these 2 junior players played brilliantly, definitely earned their way here to the finals.
They played their hearts out. Both of these competitors will be well on their way to having a great time at the Pokemon World Championships. And what an exciting way to close this out for the juniors.
Absolutely. Man, that was probably the most exciting match we've seen all weekend. I really didn't know who was going to win. Back and forth action and, like lightning speed from both players, just constant action.
One of my favorite things you notice with the juniors is they are so excited to play the game. They are really just quivering when they're playing, trying to go as quickly as possible, show off these crazy, intelligent combos. Both players really played very well for their level, and we got to see a very exciting matchup. Bats is a fast-paced type of engine that you can run with decks, and there are many different ways that you can approach it.
Yeah, as Justin was saying earlier, both of these players, this will be their last year in the junior division. So next season, we'll see them in the senior division. We can already see there's pretty good players here, so they'll have no problem competing in that senior division. But they also will be at the World Championships competing for that world title.
Absolutely, and while only one of these players was able to run away with the championship here in their last year as a junior, both of them have their eyes on a much larger prize that's going to be coming up in August.
Right, and I think we're going to take a quick little break, and when we come back, we'll have an interview with our champion, Evan Smith.